So, good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I would like to welcome my dear colleagues, Latvian Minister of Defense, Mr. Andris Sprūds, and Estonian Minister of Defense, Mr. Hanno Pevkur, here in Vilnius. And it's my pleasure to see you both again. Today we had very comprehensive discussions and carried a lot of issues. First, of course, we discussed the upcoming NATO summit in Hague. Russia remains a long-term threat to Europe and to the alliance as a whole. So the primary interest for the upcoming NATO summit is to reaffirm the transatlantic bond to support the increase of defense investments for NATO member states, to implement defense plans, and the commitment to enhance NATO's collective defense. We stress that the transatlantic bond is the cornerstone of European defense, and the presence of US forces in Baltic states is crucial to deter Russia. The growing Russian threat also obliges Europe to take steps to strengthen deterrence and defense and develop NATO's overall capabilities to meet the requirements of the regional defense plans. We underlined the urgent need to increase defense investments in European and NATO countries, and we all see that 3% of GDP should be a new benchmark. In 2026-2030, Lithuania will have to allocate 5 to 6% of GDP to our defense, to meet both our national capacity expansion and regional NATO defense plans. We also emphasized the urgent need to strengthen European defense capabilities by using all existing EU instruments, investments in defense industry, development of production, increase of defense funding, and creating new funding instruments on EU level. And 3 Baltic states and Poland prepared joint input to the white paper on future European defense. Our main message: we must move fast and ensure ambitious financing for defense in both current and upcoming multi-annual financial framework. I want to reiterate again, we must move fast and be ambitious. We don't really have time. The growing number of hybrid attacks requires a rapid and effective response from us. So today we talked about the need for urgent coordination to protect critical undersea infrastructure, and recently launched NATO military activity, Baltic Sentry, was a timely response, sending a clear strategic message to Russia and anyone who is thinking about targeting our infrastructure, that we take our security seriously and will not allow such attacks to become a new normal. We also seek a common interpretation of certain legislative measures, and we will work together on that furthermore. As Ukraine will next month mark 3 years since the beginning of a full-scale Russian invasion, we cannot relax, we cannot grow weary as Ukrainians fight for their and our freedom. We stressed the importance of allies mobilizing political will and economic resources. We must address the challenge of Russia's shadow fleet, which by transporting Russian oil threatens our strategic undersea infrastructure, risks causing ecological catastrophe in the Baltic Sea, and allows Russia to generate funds to finance the aggression in Ukraine. We must provide sufficient and rapid assistance to Ukraine, and as this is the only way to stop Russia before it spreads further. Every Russian tank destroyed in Ukraine is the tank that is not going to cross our borders. During this meeting, the Baltic states reaffirmed, of course, their commitment to allocate at least 0.25% GDP annually to the security and defense of Ukraine. We must not only provide military and financial assistance, but also help Ukraine strengthen and grow its defense industry. Today, we also discussed our joint efforts to strengthen NATO's eastern-northern border, also known as the Baltic Defense Line. There is no doubt that this is a key instrument for securing NATO's eastern-northern flank, so we seek EU financial support to enhance regional security. Russia is not only a threat to Ukraine or the Baltic states, it is a threat to the whole alliance. It is a threat to the whole of Europe. The Ottawa Convention was another topic that we mentioned, and our goal is to have common principles and a strong strategic message on border defense in the region. The consultations are ongoing. So these were among the main issues that we discussed, and I would like to thank you again, Andris and Hanno, for our fruitful and honest discussions. In such turbulent times, it is really important that we agree on the main security measures and that we work together, because the times are not going to get any easier. So I will stop here and turn to my colleagues.
Thank you, Minister. Next up, the Estonian Minister of Defense, Mr. Hanno Pevkur.
Thank you very much, Dovilė. Thank you very much for inviting us and hosting us. It has been a very good meeting, and also yesterday, thank you very much for the beautiful dinner. For us, what is important? It is important that regionally we have the same understanding about the regional security, about transatlantic security, and about European security. So this is why it is vital that our positions, when we go to the European meetings, when we go to the NATO meetings, are similar. And this is one of the main goals of these meetings, and I believe that today we showed that we can have common understanding and joint statements, joint positions. Regarding the defense spendings and what President Trump also said about 5%. Well, one thing is clear, we all need to do more. And it's not only about the percentage. We can also forget the percentage. But what we have to understand are the capabilities, are the regional plans, and these regional plans were approved here in Vilnius altogether. All the allies made this decision to go further according to these regional plans. Now, during these last years, and especially last year, we've been working on the capability targets. And these capability targets have a price. They have a price tag. So when we want to be strong collectively, then we need to invest more. We can calculate country by country. The end result will be the same. We need to invest a lot more. If we can agree in Hague that the minimum requirement is 3%, then let it be. But we also know that this is not enough. We need to go above 4%, maybe even to 5% to reach these capabilities, what we need to defend our countries and our nations. And it's not only about the Baltic states. It's about all the allies in NATO. I've calculated last 21 years, or a bit more than 20 years, how much Estonia has been in NATO. And I can proudly say that Estonia, since 2004, when we stepped into the NATO, has invested into defense by average 2%. So to be correct, 1.9925, but let's be honest, it's 2%. And we are doing more. So next year we will invest already 3.7, and to be honest, I'm quite confident that this 3.7 is just the margin what we have today, that we go above it, because also it has been discussed lately in our government, or at least said by the Prime Minister, and then different ministers had their opinion. Going to Europe is important to mention that we have a new commission, and it is historic momentum for our countries. We have defense commissioner, first time ever in European Commission, who is Lithuanian. We have high representative who is coming from Estonia, and we have budget commissioner who is coming from Poland. So our region has the momentum to explain to all the allies why it is important also for European Union to spend more on defense. And our positions are very, very similar, and I'm really happy that also Poland joined our initiative to send the same message. So first, new finance mechanism or new resources. Is it 500 billion what Ursula von der Leyen says or something else? We support it. Secondly, air defense. We support it, and it has to be very clear that we need to acquire air defense means and also additional ammunition. So for that, we can use joint procurements. We are happy with that, to use joint procurements for air defense, ammunition, and some other critical needs. And of course, Baltic Defense Line, Poland has also its actions, and Finland has. So basically we have the Eastern Shield or Eastern Defense Line, however you call it. The point is the same. We are the first line of defense for NATO, for our people, for the alliance, and for the European countries. So this is why we believe that it is important that all of us will contribute to that. And last but not least, before the questions, I would like to say once more a big thank to Dovilė and Lithuania for keeping the presidency of three Baltic ministers, and I'm happy to host you already in a couple of months in Estonia. So the next meeting will be in Estonia, so all the journalists are more than welcome to travel also to Estonia to cover this meeting. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up, the Latvian Minister of Defense, Mr. Andris Sprūds.
Distinguished media representatives, good afternoon. First of all, thank you, Minister, thank you, Dovilė, for hosting us in Lithuania. Thanks to both Dovilė and also Hanno for frank, productive, fruitful, comprehensive discussions, conversation, dialogue, what we had today. The conversation demonstrates the like-mindedness of our nations and also decision-making community that, of course, we face common threats. We need to address those common threats jointly. And, of course, we have to also continuously support Ukraine. And also we are doing practical steps. It's not only about strategic assessment and understanding what we have to do. It's what kind of practical steps already we are making. This compound, this military base is a clear demonstration that Lithuania is doing its homework, Latvia is doing its homework, Estonia is doing its homework. We are building up our armed forces in terms of quantity, in terms of quality. We are building up our infrastructure. We are building up our military industry. We are building up our capabilities. Of course, it requires funding. Latvia this year almost 3.5%, next year 3.7%, and we also move towards a decision that it should be beyond 4%. Funding is important. It is about political will. It is about understanding how much it is important to invest in defense, and of course it is also about specific resources for acquisition of those capabilities. Then it's about a defensive collective alliance, about NATO, one for all for one. We are making great steps in this regard. Also in Latvian case, we are building up our multinational brigade, like in Estonia and Lithuania. We welcomed a Swedish battalion, 500 soldiers just arrived a few days ago. And of course, the build-up of multinational brigades in terms of infrastructure, in terms of integrated, in regional plans, in common understanding and practice, of course, is extremely important. So also in Latvia, we'll bring up the biggest military range in the Baltic countries, and here we see also potential for cooperation among our nations. So NATO is important, but there are homework also to do for collective defense alliance. Exactly, financing is crucial in this regard. It demonstrates a political will, understanding, and once more it provides resources for obtaining acquisition of those necessary capabilities. And there are a number of those capabilities. Then support for Ukraine. The Baltic countries are leaders in this regard. 0.25% from GDP, this is taken for granted, and we go beyond this. Equipment to Ukraine, training to Ukrainian soldiers, also among 8 capability coalitions, 3 are being co-led by Baltic nations. We demonstrate our leadership in supporting Ukraine, in understanding that fight in Ukraine is for values and interests of the wider global world. It's what kind of world we will be living in. So that's why, of course, continuous staunch support for Ukraine is absolutely crucial. There is common understanding on this. Still, of course, there are steps to be done, what we can do also together, which was also discussed during this meeting. We should defend actively our interests in a wider context, namely within NATO and especially also within the EU. We must remember we are defending not only Latvia's, Lithuania's, and Estonia's external border, we defend also external border of the EU and NATO. That's why Baltic Defense Line, together with Poland, it's not just about eastern flank of Baltic countries, it's about defending every inch of NATO and EU territory. And we should certainly also here attract the funding, first of all, also understanding from our EU and NATO partners that this is crucial for all of us. There is one NATO, there are no several NATOs. We defend NATO here. And of course, that's why the building up infrastructure is important as well, not only about the Baltic Defense Line. It's different ranges, it's different places of practice, also not only for, in a sense, conventional forces, but also for new technologies. Latvia has built up the 5G first testing ground. Then, of course, we move forward with the drone testing grounds as well. So it is important that we as small nations, but technologically advanced nations, use and capitalize on all our resources, intellectual resources, technological resources, to make our forces even stronger. Last but not least, of course, common exercises in all domains, be it on the land, be it in air, be it in the sea, or in a cyber, and also actually in a space. So this is what is extremely important. And especially one emphasis was also placed that air defenses are crucial, and we have to build multi-layered air defenses against different kind of threats what we face. So, but this is just one domain. We, of course, must remember that capabilities must be developed, and we are doing it in all domains where we are facing our adversaries. Thank you.
Thank you, ministers. Time for your questions.
Good afternoon. Coming back to the Ottawa Convention, first of all, Minister mentioned that it was talked about. So there is an ongoing discussion in Finland and Lithuania about the denunciation of the act. Minister Šakalienė, few times even today, mentioned that there is a need of a regional decision. How likely is the regional decision? This question maybe is concerning more towards Latvian minister, but also to the both Estonia and Lithuania. And do you see the need of the denunciation of the convention? Thank you.
As already I stated in my introductory remarks, of course, defending external border of NATO is absolutely crucial. We have to make all steps necessary. We are building the Baltic Defense Line, and of course we realize how important it is to use all efficient means to strengthen our border defense capabilities, to proceed, and of course do it together with our Baltic partners. We have had this discussion also in Latvia, and we are having this discussion in Latvia. It's also ongoing. As a minister, I have requested the military advice as well, so the military advice also will be provided. So, of course, the military vision outlook is extremely important here, so how they see it. We had this discussion a year ago in earnest. Then the military advice was that there is no need to move out from Ottawa Convention. But, of course, since the situation develops, since we also see exactly the discussion opens in a regional framework, so we are ready to come back, and we're starting this debate in Latvia, but of course also with our partners in the Baltic countries, Lithuania, Estonia, Finland, Poland, but also with our allies. As I mentioned, we are building multinational brigades, so of course the outlook and vision and advice also by our partners, Canada, Germany, UK, it is also important. So, of course, the consultations take place, so collective regional approach is extremely important. It is a part of strategic communication. It is a combining the ways how we exactly build up also Baltic Defense Line. It's also how we integrate our regional understanding with understanding and common practices within wider alliance.
Thank you. More questions?
Maybe I will just echo very quickly, because there was a question also to us,
yes,
our position, very quickly. Our military advice so far has been that there are alternatives, and to use non-controllable anti-personnel landmines is not the asset which puts us limitations to fight against any enemy. So, of course, we are always open to discuss with our partners, and I fully agree with Andris that it's not only the Baltic question. It is also the question of our allies who are here. And we have to bear in mind that Latvia has, Canada has a framework nation. Estonia has UK as a framework nation, and Princess Diana was the one who was heavily fighting against anti-personnel landmines which are not controlled. And just also from the people's perspective, let's do not forget that these are not controllable, which means that when you put them onto the ground, they will stay there, and this land cannot be used as long as it's not demined. And it's extremely difficult to demine, and also in our conditions, we all know how quickly the grass is growing or the hash is growing. So just bear in mind that it's not just emotional question that to denounce or not to denounce. First, the most important thing is the military need for that, and do we have alternatives? Can we have also controlled anti-personnel mines? And the answer is yes, we have. Is it M28 Claymore type side mines or some other types? This is one, but also the landmines which are controllable either remotely or by the controlled detonation or with the timer or whatever. So this is one side, and this is the most important thing, that what the military is saying, that do we need it or not? And then it's also the allies. So what the allies will say about it, and are we putting us and ourselves more restrictions, making a decision to denounce or to leave Ottawa Conventions, or giving more freedom? So this is why we all understand that yes, there are different goals and different perspectives to discuss it, and why it is important to have the common approach.
Mr. Sprūds?
Yeah, just to add what my Estonian colleague, my friend Hanno, just said, that let's be clear and let's not have any misunderstanding. Of course, Ottawa Convention is about uncontrollable anti-personnel mines. So we, and also we in Latvia, we have anti-tank mines and anti-personnel mines, but these are controllable mines, and we are acquiring both anti-tank mines and anti-personnel mines. When we discuss, of course, Ottawa Convention, this is a specific type of anti-personnel mines. And here, of course, as I said, sort of regional discussion is extremely important.
Okay, thank you. Time for question number 2.
Lithuanian national broadcaster. Basically, a question for all the 3 ministers. Just yesterday, here in Vilnius, German Defense Minister Pistorius mentioned that and assessed that Russia will reform its army and will be preparing for a possible attack against NATO countries in 2029, possibly 2030, which means we have like 4 to 5 years to prepare to do something about it. Knowing the situation in Europe, the difficulties for the industry, more important, the difficulties between the alliance and European Union, Hungary, Slovakia, all these things, how do you assess this problem? And do we need another alliances, possibly like Baltic states together with Scandinavians, with Poland, with Netherlands, for example, or even Germany, to, I don't know, make some kind of deals to act as one against this possible invasion or something, or some provocations, just as a security guarantee that we don't know what Spain, France, or even Slovakia and other countries how they act in NATO framework, and we have to do something. So, is it a possibility? Do you have something in mind, or we shall stick to all NATO?
Dovilė, because you are the host, so you will start.
Okay, I was willing to let my guest speak, but actually there are several aspects. So first of all, yes, of course, we know that there are challenges, both regarding joint understanding of the urgency of a threat and the possible scenarios among the members of NATO alliance, among the members of EU. But at the same time, we showed by helping Ukraine that we can be quite united and quite efficient, and creating alliances within alliances, creating possibilities to contradict each other is not a fruitful way forward. Strengthening cooperation regionally, yes, this is a complementary action. And as you see, we Baltics work together very closely. We involve Poland very intensely. Well, just what we mentioned about the white paper on defense funding. And of course, when we talk about NB8 format, I think this is also getting more and more active and more intense. I think all of us understand very closely. Those who are on the border with Russia have the most acute understanding what is going on. And therefore, our joint actions, both between ourselves and in influencing our colleagues within NATO alliance and within EU about the urgency of financial instruments, about certain changes in legislation, for example, regarding European Investment Bank, regarding Maastricht criteria, and etc. This is where we can work together. But I'd like to give floor then Andris and Hanno, and if need be, I will complement in the end. Please.
Thank you. Yes, a number of observations. Generally, the question which consisted of several questions, but all of them are actually very important. Starting with the assumptions when some conflict can take place. Of course, there are different assumptions. There are sort of threat assessment, what kind of scenario is likely. At the same time, let's be careful also about those assumptions. Most likely it will not be with Russia that we will decide on a day, on a time, on a place where we engage in some kind of conflict. The duel of gentlemen, it will not take place. We should be ready for conflict today, not after 4 or 5 years. We actually are in conflict today. Hybrid warfare activities take place all the time against Baltic countries, in cybersecurity, in disinformation campaigns, in weaponization of illegal migration. We face it already right now. So that's why we are in a conflict with adversary, with aggressor country, also in Ukraine right now. And that's why by being ready right now, actually it deters also for some kind of worst-case scenario also in the future. So I would be careful with building those assumptions. There will be 4 or 5 years. We can prepare ourselves and then we, let's say, engage in a conflict. Most likely it will not be the case. Now it's a time to be ready. As for NATO itself, I would be very careful, exactly as Dovilė said, somehow to start to draw dividing lines. In Madrid summit, in strategic concept, we agreed very clearly, Russia is a threat, that there is common threat assessment. Sometimes we might differ on some of the specific activities, but we are not different on a threat assessment, on understanding how important it is to keep alliance strong, united, and actually what alliance does, it shows and demonstrates it. Finland, Sweden joined alliance. It also shows the strength of the whole alliance. Ukraine, I believe, will be the NATO member, as a 33rd NATO member, sooner or later. So that's why alliance has absolutely its strengths, its importance in unity, in its show of solidarity. So all together, one for all for one. At the same time, it doesn't exclude some additional initiatives. NB8 or Nordic Baltic Initiative. I would add JEF, Joint Expeditionary Forces, 10 nations, excellent example. Joint Expeditionary Forces acted almost immediately after the incidents in a sea, what we saw right now. So I think this is an example. Of course, there are some place and some time when additional formats, initiatives can take place to speed up things, but generally NATO is one for all for one, and we have to keep it, this understanding, this conviction or belief, and also, of course, unity in terms of the plans, and in terms of also, of course, if necessary, also in terms of acting as one and united.
First of all, why it is important to continue helping Ukraine. Exactly this is why. We have to help Ukraine to win this war. When they get the victory, and then the Russian army will get the message that we were able to help Ukraine, And of course, we are able to defend ourselves and our nations. So this is the starting point. The second remark I want to say that, I believe in NATO, and we all should, because when we start to, doubt in that maybe someone will not make a decision, I will remind you that Article 5 is up to the countries to decide whether it should be engaged or not. So we here are the ones who are saying that now we are attacked and Article 5 will be engaged. What is important to understand also? Yes, of course, the understanding is there that when this war will be over in Ukraine, and in one moment it will be over, those 600,000 soldiers, what Russians have there, don't want to go back to Yakutia to earn $200 per month, as they are earning $2,000 per month today. It is not a secret that Russian military development plan says that they want to establish a new army corps close to Estonia and Finland, the other one close to here, and we also know that there is no difference of Belarus and Russia. So when there will be a new army corps, then that means that in our neighborhood there will be 60,000 troops with additional equipment, with additional weaponry, etc. We need to address it, and we need to show our deterrence and strength. So this is why we have allies here. This is why the German brigade will be here in Lithuania. This is why United Kingdom has allocated a brigade to Estonia. This is why Latvian multinational brigade has 14 countries. So this is why we are doing this. We are sending the message, don't touch us, don't come to play with us. We will destroy you if necessary. And this should be, our message that NATO is together in this. NATO will be together and will act together if necessary. Andris already mentioned JEF and Nordic Baltic cooperation. I will not go through that. But what is important? When we have more funding into defense, and we will, so the Lithuanian government has decided that, so we are investing more Latvians, we also need to ramp up the industry, our own industry. And this is why I believe that all of us who are preparing the ammunition plants, defense industry parks, this is very important. We see at the moment this in Ukraine, that you need to have also your own defense industry. So this is, a complex of different measures, what we need to do in coming years and what we had to do already earlier. And of course, continue to explain to our friends in Europe that this is our, joint task. This is why it is one for all for one principle in NATO, and has been for 75 years. Thank you.
We have time for one last question.
I have two, so I will be fast. First one is for the Minister of Lithuania and maybe the Minister of Latvia. Laurynas Kasčiūnas, former Minister of National Defense of Lithuania, had mentioned possible plans to contribute to the establishment of a military training area in Latvia. Is this possibility currently being considered or not?
So maybe my Latvian colleague tell more about their plans to develop infrastructure, and then Lithuania will participate in discussions.
About Lithuanian plans in Latvia.
No, I mean, talking about, okay, then I'll start from
please,
our point. We need more training areas, and this is obvious. State Defense Council has also made a decision that we need training area the size of brigade, which would be comfortable for the brigade-sized unit to train. We don't have it. So we are now looking at very different options. We have additional 2 small training areas that are for 3 times less sized unit. One of the options is, of course, to cooperate with our neighbors, also to cooperate with allies, and therefore yesterday again, during the visit of my colleague Boris Pistorius, we discussed about possibility for some of our units to train also using German training areas. But of course, working on joint projects with Latvia, that would be, of course, wonderful. Latvians are doing great, I think, in the finalizing stages of their really beautifully sized training area.
Thank you, Dovilė, and thank you for the question. Yes, absolutely. The Šalių military range and also military base, this is one of our flagship infrastructural objects for the national, regional, and also for the NATO as an exercising training grounds. And this will be the biggest military range in the Baltic countries, 25,000 hectares, so it's quite considerable part of Latvia. So this is a brigade-size exercising range. Already now it functions as a drone testing grounds for the drones also tested within a drone coalition to be sent to Ukraine. But already for the military exercises, it will be finished by the end of this year. So starting from 2026, absolutely, we are ready to host brigade-size exercises. And then we are also ready, of course, to closely cooperate with our partners here in the region, including, of course, with Lithuania. So we'll be happy to host and to exercise together. As I already mentioned, exercising, jointly practicing, this is crucial. This is exactly the best instrument to keep together the Baltic solidarity, is to keep strong, to practice together, and also it's an excellent example and actually the demonstration, a strong demonstration of deterrence that we are here, we are ready, and we are doing it together, building up military infrastructures, also of course in terms of training. Training is crucial, and infrastructure of course for this is absolutely precondition, and we are doing our homework.
And one last question for Lithuanian minister. Nemuno Aušra leader Remigijus Žemaitaitis said that going to Ukraine is only worthwhile if one wants to learn about corruption. And how do you assess such statements, and what impact could such rhetoric have?
I usually don't comment what other people are saying. I have my own opinion, and you probably know it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, ministers.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.